Guys and girls, welcome to another Enlightened Entrepreneur podcast with our special guest, Nate Lind. Got it right. This guy is super awesome, not just because he's wearing a Batman shirt. So if you're listening to this, you need to find the video and watch it. Not least because he's wearing a Batman shirt and a Santa hat all in one. Even Batman didn't dare to do that. But this dude has had brands doing $100 million. He's got communities. He's running events. He's turned multiple businesses into massive businesses from like no starting capital. He's a cool dude. He's got a lot of other stuff going on. And we're of course going to get into that in this interview. And if you stay till the end, Nate's actually got a approved list of vendors and partners that he only shares actually privately in his group, and he has agreed to share that with anybody that wants to give us their attention to the end, because we know that attention is a finite resource in this day and age, and so we want to incentivize you. It is a bribe, but it'll be worth it. Nate, how the hell are you?
I'm doing fantastic, and I couldn't start this interview after hearing all this this trumpet, like I'm walking into this like magical castle and all these great things being said about me, without also bringing it down home too.
Yes.
Like I've had tons and tons of fantastic success. I live a 4-hour work week life. I can work anywhere in the world. I've been able to do that for years now, but I for sure have had a monstrous amount of obstacles. I've made millions, I've lost millions, and I'm probably one of the most humble online entrepreneurs that you'll meet. You'll never catch me taking selfies with me in a Lamborghini because 1, I don't own one. 2, I think it's silly. And 3, I read The Millionaire Next Door when I was in my 20s, and I believe that most millionaires are driving around in Ford F-150s that are probably 15, 20 years old. So that's my lifestyle. But I'm excited to be on, and anything I can do to help you guys in your community. I've definitely had some big wins in my column before, and like I mentioned, I've had some pretty tough losses. So I'm happy to share how those challenges and those failures have led me on to be able to do better, because life is trial and error, and we don't have any way to figure out what the hell we're doing. We're on the cutting edge than to get cut a little bit. So that's it.
I've not heard that cutting edge actually getting cut on the cutting edge expression before, but I'm gonna steal
Nateism.
it. I'm gonna steal it. Nateism. All right.
Nateism.
Okay. All right. So your lawyers will be on me if I use that, but I'm gonna use it. So bring it on.
Use it.
I'm gonna use it. Right. So absolutely, Nate. Absolutely. We've spoken offline. We've had a number of conversations. You're a super humble dude. We're going to be hanging out in January, which I'm looking forward to. Which more on that later on. But I am going to try and encourage you to really, reveal those tender pink bits for this podcast. We like a little bit of that. And so let's get into things. So we were chatting off air a little bit, and there's a lot of opening points for this podcast, and I know that you've got people that follow you. They watch everything that you do and listen to all the interviews you do, and so I'm keen to keep it unique, keep it fresh. But we need to start somewhere logical, like at the beginning. And my understanding is that you actually started one or more businesses without any money.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is pretty cool. So can we start with that?
So let's start at the beginning of my online entrepreneurship. I got started, actually this was all a side hustle. I invested in an online business. I was actually trying to buy one, and that didn't go through. And what I saw was I was able to see like the profit and loss and the numbers. And when you're buying a business, you get to see the due diligence of it. And I come from a real estate background, so due diligence is a phrase that's really common. When you're getting ready to buy a property, you do your due diligence. It's just making sure you know what the hell you're getting into. So I was getting ready to buy a business. I had stacked away some cash from when I was a house flipper in my 20s, and I was going to invest a chunk of cash. And it was just drilled into me, leverage other people's money, using a lender, using credit, using partnerships, that sort of stuff. So when I was getting into this, that's exactly what I did. That specific deal I was getting ready to buy didn't end up happening, didn't work out, but I was able to find by doing some additional networking another opportunity. And I literally invested no money down to start. I used my credit cards in the beginning. Like I literally was using credit cards. Let me hide the number here so you guys can't take my I was literally using credit cards.
Phew, thank you, because I didn't know what a credit card was, and so I'm glad
Just
you
in
did that. I
case
was like, credit,
you don't
what?
know what a credit card is, I've
cards?
got a couple of them
Look
here.
at this.
Got a PayPal card I just got too. So yeah, I mean, I use credit, and it's funny because I've talked with entrepreneurs that like would look down their nose at me like, oh, you couldn't get financing somewhere else, or you couldn't raise a bunch of money from in Silicon Valley or with venture capitals or angel investors. Well, I didn't want to, because when you do that, you're working for somebody else. And the goal around all this was for me to stop working full time, because at the time I was a vice president at Bank of America, and I had kind of a cushy corporate job. I was working from home too at that point, so that was pretty cool. But I definitely was not living a 4-hour work week. I was working like 50, 60 hours a week, so that sucked. So that's really what my goal getting into this was, is I wanted a passive investment, something that would give me the flexibility and the freedom to be able to live and move anywhere. At the time, my wife and I were thinking about moving from we were in the Northern Virginia area outside of Washington, D.C., and we wanted to move somewhere. She wanted to go to Dallas. I wanted to go to Denver. So of course we picked a place that neither of us really wanted to go to, and it was Albuquerque, New Mexico. So that's where we were for about 6 years. And now she got her way, and we're in Dallas. So that's what I did in the beginning. I used credit cards to buy inventory, to buy advertising. We used credit cards to pay for like the setup of our websites and that sort of stuff. And it put on a tremendous amount of pressure and a ton of stress, but I knew I had to perform. And I found that when I'm in periods and points of time where I have high stress and I have high pressure and people are depending on me, that's when I lift my game up even higher, so that I don't want to fail to meet people's expectations. So that's just been kind of a common mindset for me, is I'll put myself in really uncomfortable positions and then watch the magic of Nate pull out of it.
Nice. And so what business was that, or what space or niche or whatever you want to go into? What was that first business?
So it was a health and beauty supplement business.
Okay.
So I was looking to buy the first business I was looking to buy was a mental clarity. It was like a ginkgo biloba like super supplement, and the owner of it, his face was the brand. He was an author, and he had his email list like knew him because he was the guru behind all of it. So it's actually good that it didn't work out, because I don't like looking back on it now, trying to separate someone that's that personally branded into a brand isn't very easy to do. No. So we ended up doing basically kind of like a split test on a brand, and it was a series of dietary supplements and probiotics and cleansers and that sort of stuff that fortunate for me, I fell into a situation where the individuals that were kind of doing the majority of the work had already had some success prior, and they knew that the first place to start is not an e-commerce page with like 50 vitamins on it. It's a funnel with one option, and then you buy that option, and then you've got an opportunity to upsell another option, and that's it. And it just so happened that they were also on continuity, and so that encourages a lifetime value over time. And that's good and bad. Like continuity, you have to disclose it very clearly and conspicuously, or it can result in higher chargebacks and complaints and that sort of stuff. But I didn't know about any of that stuff when I got started. I had to learn that as I went.
Nice one. So, and now that's super interesting, because we get people on here, and a lot of them are e-commerce professionals, crushing obviously, but it sounds to me, because you said it, so reading literally on the lines, not between them, that you didn't start with an e-commerce store with 50 products. You started with one funnel. I'm in your head, I think, or you said
yes.
that, or you said that verbatim. But so this is CPA, right? So you've got a funnel. You're sending traffic to that funnel. How much of that traffic was yours, and how much was other people's?
It was 0 of my own traffic and 100. I don't have 100 fingers, so let's just pretend this is 10 percentage points per finger.
Yep.
It was 100%. It was 100% affiliate-based traffic in the beginning. And it was CPA. So for those of you that aren't familiar with that terminology, it's not your accountant, certified public accountant. No, it's cost per acquisition. It's also called cost per action. And in the cost per acquisition, you only pay for a customer when they have actually bought something. There's literally a pixel that fires on the thank you page, so that there's tracking that goes through the various, the various tracking systems and stuff that are out there that lets the affiliate know that they made a sale. So they are incentivized for you to have a full-on sale, not just send looky-loos to your website who bounce off of it. And it requires a very particular skill set to make sure that your website converts. And converting is just making sure that someone who's looking on your page actually hits the buy now button and converts into a customer. So that's the key critical part to it. Is if you don't do that, you won't get if you don't do that, you won't get massive amounts of sales. And I still see this now. People that are all about e-commerce. Yeah, I can drop ship all of these products. Well, when a customer, a potential customer, comes to your website and they see this Chinese menu of 100 options, they're not going to know what to pick. And this is proven time and time again. People have built massive businesses around this. Russell Brunson's, running crazy with ClickFunnels, that using, you're one funnel away. And, I agree with some of that. I don't necessarily agree with the tech stack he's got behind ClickFunnels. But there's a lot of good sense that comes with a good linear sales funnel. And direct response marketing gurus will adhere to that rule like all the time. Pick your best seller and then create a funnel for it, and then run traffic to it. If not your own, go get affiliate traffic.
I mean, and what really affiliate traffic is, I mean, it's the early influencers, right? It's the early influencer marketing. So you are looking for people that control communities, they own their own traffic, and you're incentivizing them to give you some of that traffic to your particular offer. And so how did you approach that? Did you have like a top 100 list whereby you were going one-on-one, or were you hitting the affiliate agencies, or did you have another option? Like how did you get there?
Yeah, so most of the affiliates that I ended up using were performance marketing affiliates. So they actually weren't like bloggers or influencers as we know them today. Now, influencers is somewhat of a new thing. Like 6-7 years ago, there weren't Instagram influencers. There weren't really YouTube influencers. Like people hadn't quite figured that out yet. So the majority of the affiliates that I've used have been really skilled at driving paid media. So in the old days, it used to be MySpace, and then it was Facebook. And it's still quite a bit Facebook, but then Google Display Network, and then there's a variety of native ads and native websites that people would put placements on, Taboola, Outbrain, like that sort of stuff. So these guys just became really, really good salesmen. Like they're just like badasses at paid media. And the easiest way to find them is actually to go to affiliate events, and that's what I did. I went to Affiliate Summit for many, many years. And that's where I started to meet these affiliate networks. I used to go to an event called AdTech, and AdTech's not really in existence anymore, definitely not in the way that it was back in the day. And we would go, and then we would literally, we'd buy a ticket to the summit, and we would go and booth to booth, and we would talk with the sales reps and stuff at the booth. And it was an entirely inefficient way of doing it, but there was no other way at the time. We just had to spend time going to these events and spending time talking to them. And then also what we were doing is we were constantly vetting and tweaking and changing and replacing our vendors. So when we first started and got set up, we didn't do our own customer service. We didn't do our own fulfillment. We didn't do our own manufacturing. Like, remember, I approached this looking for a passive business. I wasn't looking to go from working 60 hours a week for a bank to working 60 hours and an extra 60 hours a week, like shipping products and driving shit over to the post office and like trying to like pick up the phone while I'm also have a day job. Like I couldn't do that.
No.
So we set up and we used these outsourced providers for those main operational chunks of our business, like customer service, fulfillment, manufacturing, like that sort of stuff. So I also found that it was really helpful to talk to those providers and just ask them, who do you recommend for traffic? Like just, people getting onto my website. That's what they call traffic. and they would refer me to people. Like there was already an ecosystem in the CPA universe, the CPA world, where these vendors knew each other and they were referring people back and forth and encouraging them to work together and that sort of stuff. So that's those are the two main ways that I found people. And it took forever. It took a ton of time. And that's kind of why, like, for folks of you that are listening, if you stay until the end, you get access to that preferred vendor list. That's something that we compile as a part of our summits every year. That is magic, because that one directory will save you 2 years worth of hunting, like it did for me in the beginning.
Wow. And so in this case, when you're talking about vendors, are you talking about affiliate networks, or like what do you classify as a vendor in this sense?
It's all of the above. So a vendor is any third-party company that's providing some operational asset to your company. So let's say it's an affiliate network. They're a vendor. A fulfillment company who is actually shipping the products direct to the customer, that's a vendor. A manufacturer who's putting all the products into your supplement bottles, or if they're putting them into boxes, if you've got gadgets, whatever it is, they're a vendor to you. Like, you're the hub and they're the spokes. So all of the spokes surrounding the nucleus of your core business are vendors to you. They're third-party companies that are providing a service on your behalf.
Amazing. And yeah, what a good reason to stay if the Christmas hat wasn't enough. And so for the fun folks of this particular podcast, Nate hacked this podcast by wearing a Christmas hat so that I can't possibly publish this outside of winter. So
that's it.
It's a good job.
Get it quick.
Jump straight to the queue. No, but so at this point we're talking about CPA, and we're talking about the health space. And we're still this is still the business that had the influencer dude, the author, wrapped up in it as well.
Yeah. So like the kind of like the nuts and bolts of the business is, so the product owner, the person who owns the product, you can call it a brand. Some people will call it the offer. They're known in the CPA universe as an advertiser. Yeah. It's a little bit backwards. Traditionally, you think of, an advertiser is someone who's helping me sell something. Well, that's not true. In performance marketing, it somehow or another the terminology got backwards long before I ever showed up. So my community and my viewpoint, my perspective has always been that of a product owner or a brand or the advertiser. I'm the store, the Shopify store, or the merchant as they call it. And then from that, the spokes to my hub is people who are driving traffic to me. That's all third party. That's not done in house. I tried multiple times to bring that in house because it is the most expensive part of the business. It's just not been my specialty. So when I got cut on the cutting edge, 3 or 4 times, I eventually just said, you know what, I'm tired of getting cut. So I'm done with that part. So I just focused on what I was good at, and what I was good at was also taking some of the equations from what I learned in real estate and applying those to e-commerce. And in real estate, and it's funny for me to talk about this now because I was an art major. Like, I struggled with math in school. I had to repeat math, and I was terrible at it. But one of the things I am good at is repetition. And if you've ever been involved in anything real estate, if you're in e-commerce, you're going to know that there's 5 or 6 calculations you have to keep calculating over and over and over again. In real estate, you need to understand what's the loan to value, the LTV of the property you're trying to acquire, and then what's the upside, what's the ARV, what's the adjusted retail value of it, and then you understand what's the difference between those two, and that's hopefully your profit. Well, in e-commerce, you need to understand what the cost of acquisition is, the CPA, and you need to understand what your customer lifetime value is. And the difference between that isn't necessarily your profit. It's your gross profit, but then you need to add in the cost of goods to actually manufacture. You need to add in your shipping, your customer service, that sort of stuff. And as that starts to shrink, then you're left with your profit. But at the end of the day, if you don't know what your profit is, then you're not going to be able to run a successful business. And I built some domain and subject matter expertise around that because I built a software platform called Offer Profit. and spelled prophet like Jesus, like PROPHET. So it was kind of like the like the looking glass or like the crystal ball of looking at it, because in the early days there was no reporting to tell me how much money I was making. And quite frankly, I wasn't making any money in the beginning. And most online entrepreneurs aren't, even the ones driving Lamborghinis. That's a story for another day. But anyways.
Shattered my reality right there. Yeah.
Bam. Boom. Yeah, totally. But if you don't have access to your numbers, and if you can't figure out how much your cost of acquisition is, and use and subtract that from the customer's lifetime value. And if you're not selling on a subscription, then it's your average order value. It's your AOV. So let's just say someone's spending $200 on your website because you've got one of these e-commerce and they're picking a whole bunch of stuff, and boom, they're spending $200.
Menu, as you put it.
The Chinese menu, yeah. Which I still never have seen that work over 7 figures a month. Like it's 7-figure a month or more is a funnel. It's always a funnel.
I can introduce you to a few guys. But I get what you're saying, right? Fundamentally, the difference between an e-commerce store and a funnel could be like 6% on the conversion rate, right? An e-commerce business is going to convert at best between maybe 2 and 5%. Whereas like a funnel, you can be pushing that up there somewhat.
Oh, absolutely. And you introduced me to someone who's got an e-commerce site that's doing 7 figures a month. I'll teach them how to make 8 figures a month on a funnel.
And a commission, and a generous commission of 10% or something.
Yeah, you know what? I can go even lower than that. But yeah, that's really just how it works. So you need to know your math. That's where having spent. I literally was working like Saturdays and Sundays. I was working 7 days a week for the first 2 years I was doing this, because there was no automatic way to extract all that shopping cart data into a repository and then put together reporting to figure out, okay, this is how much I'm earning, and then also pulling the expenses that you're getting for your invoices on cost acquisition. There was no one place that you could put all that together. And I don't know if I'm the first one to build it or not, but I'm one of the earlier pioneers of putting that all together. And I sold that platform to a CRM called Limelight CRM. And then other CRMs and other platforms started to build some reporting like that as well. Or maybe they had it in development at the same time, but that was kind of one of my earlier claim to fame, is I figured all that out and put it in there. And that's what was that was one of the key things that enabled me a competitive edge against a lot of people that were out there at the time. And yeah, that was a really fun time, but it was a grueling 7 days a week, 8-9 hours a day, because I was literally making these giant spreadsheets and pivot tables and stuff. And remember, I'm a freaking art major. Like, I was Googling how to do a pivot table, and then creating these pivot tables and extracting all this data. And then the next day, all new data would come in. I'd have to repeat the process all over again. And eventually I was just getting so frustrated that I hired some developers and showed them my spreadsheet, told them what I was trying to do, and then we backed into creating a database, or a repository of data, created an electronic ETL, electronic transfer, I don't even know what it's called. We created what's called an ETL to pull this data into the database. And then we were able to query the database really quickly, because another thing we learned too, if you mess around with your shopping cart and your CRM while sales are coming in, it stalls out. Yeah. Like you're piling too many people into that Lamborghini. Eventually that Lamborghini, it can't get up and go. Like the tires squish down too much.
Yeah, it doesn't take much actually to squish those down so they can't go over like a little bump in the road.
Exactly.
I'm a side note here, but I do know a few e-commerce who've like struck it rich, bought a Lambo, and then sold it right back at a massive loss and got like a different car like a week later. So
just rent it. If you're out there and you strike it rich, before you spend money on an exotic, go to Las Vegas or go to any of the places you can rent them and rent it for a week. Yeah. And after a week, if you still are in love with that car, okay, and you've got the cash to do it, not the credit, but you actually have the cash to do it, and you're not going to care if you're going to take a huge loss, then okay.
There you go, top
go
tip.
For it.
So, as we said, like the early CPA marketing it has a lot of similarities with the current influencer marketing, right? And right now, there are a lot of people talking about influencer marketing. There's a lot of people crushing with influencer marketing, but we are like right at the beginning of it in a world where, and I'm a futurist. I love following people like Peter Diamandis. The Inevitable is one of my favorite books. I love like knowing what's coming up and then trying to build my business to intersect that boom that's going to happen, right? And one of the booms that hasn't properly happened in a world where everybody with a webcam and a microphone can be potentially an influencer if they've got something to say. And by the way, camera and a microphone, it's on your mobile phone, right? So everybody's got one of those anyway, right? In a world where everybody has the potential to become an influencer if they've got something interesting to say, and yet, at the moment, only maybe like 1 or 2% of those people putting out content actually are. We've got a long way to go in this influencer boom, and it's a phenomenally exciting area. I'm gonna get on my soapbox for a little second. It's a phenomenally exciting time and opportunity, because these are people that have genuinely built up a good rapport, value with their communities, and they also have already heard the horror stories of people before them who have just burnt their communities by peddling shit. And so now, if you're able to find influencers that can actually resonate with your message and agree to work with you and share your products with their audience, and you do that time and time again, it's extremely scalable, and it's just phenomenal, right? It's a huge opportunity. And so, going back to Nate in the 90s or early 2000s with the CPA, I don't know what it was. What similarities? I think similarities is the best word I can come up with. Can you draw between that and influencer marketing nowadays?
There's a huge parallel that I'm seeing in this. So. Just to affirm the record, I actually only got started in 2011, so I'm not like old guard like some of the old guard guys are, but I learned a lot really fast putting in those 7 days a week.
Sorry, I thought you were a child prodigy. I apologize.
So it's actually interesting because I did all that real estate in my 20s, which I got started in like 2001. So 2001 through 2008, I was a real estate a house flipper. And then I spent some time going back to corporate America, and then got into all this. But to get back to your question, the parallels that I see between influencer marketing and affiliate marketing, there's a lot of them. The biggest one that I see is the generation of traffic. So influencers with large consumer bases, they've got the ability, like you just said, to reach them at a very affordable rate. So let's just take an Instagram influencer. There's someone that has 250,000 followers on Instagram, and they're highly engaged, meaning they're actively commenting, not just a shitload of followers that aren't really doing anything, but if there's a lot of engagement, that influencer, that Instagram influencer, has no idea most of the time, but they could be making millions of dollars a year if they were able to align themselves with a couple of brands, not a whole bunch of them. It can't be a big pitch fest, but if there is a couple of core brands that can pay them on a cost per acquisition, and that influencer can figure that out, they can make a massive amount of money. And I know this because some of the affiliates that I've used before, like in my beard product, when I was selling Beard Czar, some of our best traffic sources were from affiliates that were building Instagram accounts and then making posts in those Instagram accounts leading to my funnel. Mm-hmm. And I was like, as I was watching this, I was curious. So I'm following the process, and I'm kind of reverse engineering it just to kind of put my, just to settle the analytical brain of Nate, just like curious, and that curiosity. And I was watching this happen, and they were doing it with like 50,000 followers. Like, it wasn't that much, and they were generating like hundreds of sales. So 100 sales at a $40 CPA is good money, and that stacks up. And then imagine doing that like days over days, weeks over weeks. Like, that turns into real coin. So it doesn't take a whole lot, but most of the Instagram followers that are out there, they've attained some success because of their zany or eclectic character that may not have a business sense on how to monetize that. That's a huge missing piece that I see right now, that it's, I don't know how that part's going to get solved, because some of the influencers and these big zany, eclectic characters, I think maybe have a little bit of the wrong perspective as to what their goals and objectives should be, which may prevent them from getting over that hump of capitalism to figure out, okay, well, now I've got this following. How do I monetize this? Because usually in our outreach to influencers, they want just obscene numbers for a post. And they don't want anything on the back end, which I think is very short-sighted for them. It should be a combination of a little bit up front, but the majority of it on the back end, because that's how you know you've got some synergy with the product brand and you can scale it together.
And the good thing is, though, fortunately, the influencers are a dime a dozen, and they're increasing every day, right? So certainly as us as marketers, we can become a little bit choosy with this, or just have a lot of smaller marketers.
Yep.
But I'm curious, and I want to get into the sort of the actionable stuff in terms of convincing an influencer that your brand is the brand that they should choose to work with. Presenting it in the right angle, speaking their language. Is there any kind of parallels you can draw there with your success in the CPA world and what's working or what would work with influencers nowadays?
I've actually found it's quite a bit different there. So that's kind of where the parallel splits off. So with affiliates, it's really easy to talk their language. Their language is money.
Yeah.
Affiliates are capitalist based. They're almost like day traders on the stockroom floor. Like they're arbitraging the cost of how much a click costs them to how much they earn per click. And that's another big number that if anyone that's listening is serious about performance marketing, you need to quickly figure out what EPC is, earnings per click. EPC is now you take you step one step away from you as the owner of the product brand, and you're talking now to an affiliate network or an affiliate. They make their money. The calculation they're measuring is the cost per click and their earnings per click. That difference is how much money they're making. And in order for you to be a smart business partner with them, you need to figure out what that is, because they want to make at least a 30% margin. And in some of the heydays, some of those rascals are making like 1,000% margin. It's just insane. And by and large, many of those are the guys that walked away with Lamborghinis that they paid cash, and God bless them, they earned it. But with influencer marketing, I found the outreach that we've done, and we've had some some like Instagram influencers and some other influencers that we've worked with before, like even in the beer product, worked with a really, really great chap. And he was not motivated by money. Like he was more interested in the content and the relationship that he was building with his users, and he was seeing money coming from modeling as something that was real tangible for him. So when we worked out a deal with him, we were paying him a monthly fee, basically kind of like a monthly retainer, to generate content. And like right out of the gate, boom, he hit it, and it was awesome. And then like he was getting some other gigs that was paying him more money. So then we kind of fell off the radar. So I either needed to increase the monthly amount to him, or I wasn't going to be on his radar. And the problem we had was he was being sought after by so many other brands. I couldn't keep his the link to us on his bio for Instagram up all the time. So he would make a post and nothing would really happen. Like we would end up using those posts for creatives. So we would take those videos or whatever, we would put them on our landing pages, or we would give them to affiliates to use those to then create ads around those to come to our website too. And that's another way, and that can be a profitable way too. So using influencers to create brand awareness, taking that collateral and giving it to affiliates who are more focused on just the generation of revenue, and then letting them drive traffic that way.
Yeah, smart. That's smart. And actually, I cover a little bit of that in my new book, which I normally have a copy next to me, but I'm not. My new book, Imagine It. It's kind of similar to this background image, but yeah, exactly the same way, right? So actually, we're talking about user-generated content, which works so well for ads, right? In some ways, in certain channels, not all channels, but like user-generated, amateur-looking, grainy.
Yep.
Sort of authentic content works so well for ads, and I think many people forget that when they're negotiating with the influencers who are going to create content, right? I mean, we had a brand in the fitness space, and we had these gym. We call them gym rats, but it's a nice thing, right? It's a nice term. I don't know if that's an international term, but gym rats.
Yeah, it is.
And they would take our products with them to the gym, and they're shooting authentic stuff, and across all these different gyms, which is great material. It really helped our customers imagine themselves with the products. And so, absolutely, if there is a little bit of a shortfall between a great influencer and their price and the price that you want to pay, potentially that can be filled with all of that amazing content that you can run advertising with. So
we've seen some other cool influencer marketing tactics or strategies where someone will go out and get like a large influencer and pay like some crazy amount of money, but then once they've gotten that influencer, then that draws like all of the wannabe influencers who want to be like them. Yeah. To come on board. So that's another strategy that I've not personally employed. That I think it's a smart strategy, and a couple of buddies were telling me about how they've done that before, and I think that's a pretty interesting one too.
I think we've got a mutual friend that is literally like his main tactic is getting that big dog, and then all of the other ones underneath want to be in the same category, and it works phenomenally well. But obviously that is a ballsy move hitting right at the top. But if that's your approach, then it works really well. So
yep.
So at this point we're sort of fluxing. You've mentioned Beards Are briefly, but we've gone from the CPA in the health space. And then you did create an e-commerce brand, or is this a series of funnels together in the beard space, or what does that look like, and what's the story between that transition period as well?
Yeah, most of my experience has been funnel related. We will usually create e-commerce stores to support the brand, but we don't run traffic to it. For us, that was never our winning strategy. We would run traffic to funnels that were very specifically designed to sell a specific product to a specific customer demographic. And then after we captured that customer as a sale, then we would redirect them back to an e-commerce store. So at that point, we've established some brand trust, some affinity with them, and now we can circle back to them and say, hey, we've got all this other cool stuff on sale. You go take a look at it. This month we've got this as a featured product or that as a featured product. Like that's mostly been our strategy, and we've also done that across platforms, and we do that very successfully on Amazon too. We take a different approach to Amazon, and this is something that I find really fascinating. Is there's companies that exist entirely on Amazon with physical products. And I think to myself, there's no stupider way of building a business than to do that, because at any point in time, some aggressive Chinese manufacturer, and I literally was just reading the story the other day in an article that was talking about this guy in Thailand teaching Chinese entrepreneurs how to knock off their competition off the platform. Like literally, here's how you can manipulate the reviews, like order a bunch of products and, do a bunch of, poor reviews. There's, talk about, specifically how the product wasn't as delivered, or the product wasn't as described, like, getting into these very specific tactics. And I know a number of people that have come to my summit before that were like, yeah, man, my listing's been knocked off of Amazon for 15, 20, 30 days. And I lost like $1 million because of that. And you don't get that revenue back again. So having all of your eggs in the Amazon basket is the stupidest thing that you could do if you're an Amazon seller, especially when it's so damn simple to set up your own platform and let everybody else do all the work. And that's kind of where, like, I'm on my soapbox, but preaching that vendor directory that I have, you can literally build your funnel. You can have someone else build your funnel. Someone else send you traffic. Someone else will manufacture your product. Someone else will ship the product. Someone else will handle customer service. You don't have to do any of the work. All you have to do is sit in your tidy whities in your house full of action figures and look at numbers and be the Wizard of Oz, like on your CRM or on your shopping cart, and just make sure that you've got you've got more money coming in than you've got going out, and just continue to do that over and over again.
And I think I echo what you say, and whilst you're like, you've said, oh, I'm on my soapbox or whatever. I hear tough love, right? Nate's giving out tough love that will help the audiences, and I have done a similar thing. I've been I've been on stage, I've been speaking. I came right on after an Amazon expert, and the Amazon expert's like, buy my course, and like, you'll make loads of money. And I came on, and I think one of the audience kind of shouted out a question and said, and it was like, oh, would you do this? Like, would you build your own brand, or would you build an Amazon brand like previous person said? And I was like, fuck. I'm like, so I want to be respectful to the other speakers, but I sort of said, look, I would do both. Or yes, I would build my own brand, right? Like, if you can only do one or the other, I'd be building my own brand every day of the week. I would not be being over reliant. And if you're on Amazon, you're trying to drive traffic to someone else's business, and they're notorious at slapping people just to maintain this reputation of being badass, right? And Bezos is hulked up a little bit over the years as well, and so he even looks more badass. So Amazon's an amazing traffic source, but you need to have like omnipresence, multi-channel, and be matching what you're doing on Amazon off of Amazon as well. And I've been in masterminds with big Amazon sellers, and they're desperate to have that kind of success off of Amazon, because they're going to sleep and waking up every morning like, shit, I hope today's not the day I get that email saying you're banned. So
I'm their Obi-Wan Kenobi, because I've got the blueprint for how the hell to do that.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, when you build your own platform, especially if you're running affiliate traffic to your own platform, you can retarget. You can send emails and messaging. You can send your retargeting ads to your Amazon listing, and then you can control the traffic that's going to your Amazon listing. And even if someone else is messing with you, like, you at least have a whole lot more power to be able to to create new reviews. Maybe all your reviews get sucked away like that. Well, now you have all of this traffic that's off of the Amazon platform that's going on. We'll send them some emails and say, hey, we've got a special on Amazon. You can get it for 20% off. We've played around with selling stuff on our own platform for 3 times as much as we sell it on Amazon, and it just special deals and stuff, and it still works, and it works great. So that's been a big thing that I'm actually somewhat, like, I don't know that I'm known for this with the CPA side. In fact, most of my counterparts and competition, friends and competitors in the CPA space, they don't use Amazon. And I'm scratching my head when I talk to them. I'm like, why not? Like, they literally are searching for, or they're finding you somehow. And as soon as they see you, there's a good percentage of them that are going to open another browser window, and they're going to look for you on Amazon.
Yeah.
And they're not going to see you, but they'll see your competitor, or they'll see someone similar to you. So they don't even know it, but they're generating traffic and sales for their competitors. They weren't going to get that sale on their own platform, but if they at least had their product on Amazon, then they can capture that sale. So it doesn't take from, it's in addition to. That's a huge piece that we've been doing that for a long time, and it's very hand in hand. It works together. They're not separate.
Exactly, and you can even take your reviews that you've already gotten on Amazon. You can put them on your product page off of Amazon, because they're your reviews. They're for your product. And it, like you said, it goes hand in hand. It's synergistic, but you don't go all out like just one, in the same way that you don't go all out one traffic source, right? And this last year has been an eye-opening experience for a lot of e-commerce that were driving the Lambos in 2017, and Facebook has been licking their wounds a little bit this year with the Cambridge Analytica thing and all of that. They're not being focused on ads; they've been focused on protection, and a lot of advertisers have found themselves on the wrong end of Facebook trying to tighten up who they let advertise on their platform, and anyone that was kind of over reliant on Facebook has, they've cut themselves on the cutting edge, like you said.
Yeah, and same thing with Amazon. And same thing with Amazon sellers too. I know a number of Amazon sellers that as Amazon's getting bigger, they're customer focused. They're not merchant focused. So that's another terminology people get confused. Is what's a merchant? Well, merchant to you, dummy. If you're selling stuff and you've got the product, you're a merchant. Amazon is not third party seller motivated. In fact, they have a whole division that knocks off the top brands. Like, that's what Amazon Basics is. Do you think in the beginning Amazon Basics was selling iPhone cords? No. Someone else was. They saw how great it was doing, and then just like Kirkland does for Costco or Great Value does for Walmart, they own all this real estate. They see what's going out the door, and then they think to themselves, well, I can improve our margins overall for the total empire by offering these individual products.
Yeah.
And then they've also got the economies of scale that are unreal. Like, they can go to China and get this stuff made at for vast amounts, and they've got all the sales data.
They also control the algorithm as well.
And they control the algorithm. So if you don't think, I don't understand how Amazon sellers can look at their businesses and think of like, oh man, like this is going to be great. Like, you're hunted. Like you literally are a pig in a field of hunters. And yeah, you may have found a truffle, and that's a yummy truffle right now. But if you don't finish that truffle and move on, you're going to get shot in the ass.
Absolutely. And I think the smarter Amazon sellers, certainly the ones that that I've been speaking with and so on, they are fully aware of the challenge they've got. And I think, like you said, you're the Obi-Wan Kenobi that they need, because they focus, they have fixated and obsessed in a good way, like entrepreneurs should, about, right, how do I crush Amazon? And they've done that for a couple of years, and they've now got brands that are doing 7-8 figures a month, and but now it's like, okay, I need to try and match that off of Amazon, and it's a different beast. And and your vendor list, tease, could well help them. So, we'll both step down for a second from our soapboxes, and we'll change. Ah, fuck. Should we just single out a few other people and just slate them for a couple of minutes? And
we probably made enough enemies on this podcast.
Fuck it. I like Amazon. I buy a lot of stuff from Amazon. It's too easy.
I love Amazon too. As a consumer, it's awesome. Yeah. As a seller, it puts you in a precarious place.
It's scary, isn't it? But actually, I say the same thing. It's in my book. I never miss an opportunity to say it from stage as well. For anybody that's advertising on Facebook, you are not the customer of Facebook. Right? The people who are scanning Facebook, poking each other, I don't know if pokes is still a thing on Facebook, and looking at cat videos, those are the customers of Facebook. Those are the people Facebook trying to keep happy. You are an advertiser, and Facebook really, really wants to get this utopia whereby every single post in the newsfeed is just as engaging as the last one. The ads and the cat videos are just equally engaging, and that's what they're looking for, and they'll reward you if you're an advertiser that can do that, and they will slap you if you're an advertiser that doesn't do that. And so, yeah, it's about realizing who is the customer, because it's not us, right? Even though it's weird because we pay so much money, but, it is weird, but that is the case on all of the different platforms, all of the traffic sources, that is the case. And they all follow a similar kind of curve where they let everybody in the beginning, and then they tighten up their rules, and they get bigger, and then they start changing some rules. It's a natural transition. It's very organic. It's good. It's great for the consumer. And if they didn't protect the consumer, the ad platform would die. But we just got to be aware of that as marketers and use that to our advantage. So right, I'm going to kick that soapbox away. Stupid soapbox. You bring it out in me, Nate. We're gonna have some. I think we're gonna have some debates. I think in January in Dominican Republic when we're hanging out with. What's your drink of choice?
I like craft beer probably the most. I'm not a big cocktail guy. Yeah, it's just been my preference. I like to low and slow ease into a couple of beers, starting about 10 in the morning, and then another beer. Actually, when I'm in the Caribbean, I really like. There's a beer called, it's actually kind of a mixed drink, I guess. It's called a michelada.
Yeah.
And it's like a what do you call it? Like a Mexican beer and some clamato juice. It's kind of like a beer Bloody Mary sort of thing. And there's Worcestershire sauce in it, little bit of soy sauce, some hot sauce. I can drink those things all day long because they're so diluted. And so I love it because then I get to be part of like the cool crowd that's drinking all day, but I'm not like totally shit faced. I don't have to worry about making an ass out of myself, which I do a great job sober. I don't need any help being drunk and making an ass out of myself.
And what's your kryptonite? I'm asking for a friend.
A kryptonite, like for drinking?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I'm old and gray enough now. Like there's not like a guilty pleasure that I'll just like you'll get me. Like I don't succumb to peer pressure. People like they'll order like shots of tequila and I'll go, "Okay, great. Look." And I'll just flick it over my shoulder. So when someone does that with some Don Julio, they don't do it a second time because it's expensive.
You're the guy that wasted the Don Julio. Fair enough.
Totally.
Right. So that was a good transition. We've eased away. No one can even remember the Amazon discussion anymore. So right, we've mentioned, or you mentioned rather off air, that you are a big personal development guy, and so I have some questions that I love asking. I do ask the same questions a lot in different interviews because I find that the answers just are so different. It's the same question, different answers are amazing. But I would like to delve in a little bit into your personal development because it's such a big space. What specifically within the personal development space are you big on and passionate about?
Well, the most important part of personal development, in my opinion, is finding either coaches or training that can help you understand more about why you do what you do. I think the average human just goes through life and they just do what they do without questioning why. And if you don't at least question why, it never gives you the opportunity to be able to improve or change or adapt your behavior. Because many times we are doing things that we don't. It's not our intention is not to to be a jerk or to to tell somebody that they're an asshole or to inflict what's it called, kind of be self-defamation, to do that sort of stuff. We create over our lives these behaviors that are made to protect us, to keep ourselves comfortable, to avoid looking bad and try to always be looking good. And then social media like just exponentially like raises that to another level. Like people are just so fake most of the time. And it's not because they're like, hey, I just want to be fake. It's just how social media has evolved and how most of our just our interactions with people are is to defend our ego and defend our psyche. Yeah. So we don't want to put ourselves out there.
Yeah, it's a highlight reel, right?
Yeah, like it's exactly it. Which is just highlight reel. I mean, that's exactly why. Like, I'm the antithesis of like the Ty Lopez is like jumping up, or the Dan Blazerians or whatever with like a bunch of hot women and smoking cars and that sort of stuff. Like, that's just not me. Like, I'm going to talk about, and we did this at the beginning of the interview. Yes, I've had some great success. Well, I've had some huge failures before too, and I actually have found that by doing that I've drawn more people to me that are more interested in me genuinely than are just interested in the like the politician side of my face, where I'm just showing like all the success and all that sort of stuff. Like I have legitimately made a bunch of millions and lost it all. Like that's happened more than once, more than I care to share. But it's happened. And when you're at the lowest of lows, you start to really recognize what's the most important to you, and it's your relationship to yourself, because that's where entrepreneurs, we've got this. We have this bit of our personality that is always like our morale is dictated by how much we're earning, like what we're providing, and that just goes back to caveman days. If you weren't hunting, you were dead. Like if you weren't bringing home the bacon, you weren't going to make it. And as a man, if you weren't bringing home the bacon, you weren't going to have a chance to procreate. Because it's just the way that it worked. I mean, the fairer sex of the world, they needed to think about survival too. So it's just based on survival mechanics.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, for personal development, the biggest thing that I look for is what can I do to break myself out of just the regular box of thinking that I'm in, and surrounding myself with people that are willing to challenge me. And also going to personal development courses and training and that sort of stuff, I think is really helpful, because the various modalities, like you can't just sit and watch a video on personal development. I can't. Okay, so let me not say you can't. I can't. I can't just sit and read Tony Robbins' book and get a bunch of personal development out of it. Now, I hear great things about people who go to Date with Destiny, and I've done stuff like that as well. Like I'm a landmark education graduate. I've done a tremendous amount of personal training with neuro-linguistic programming, but all of that's been to learn and to better myself. And as a result of that, really trying to carve away these these masks or these shells that we build up around ourselves to just like authentically let ourselves, translate through video, through podcasts, in person, with our friends, with our family. That's what I'm constantly on a pursuit to try to do. And I think that the people who are successful in communicating to a larger group, to a larger crowd, whether it be online or in person, have really figured out, how they can share an authentic version of themselves and how they can be vulnerable without being afraid of all the haters that are out there too. Because it doesn't matter really what you do. You'll have 50% that like you, love you, and you'll have 50% that hate you. And frequently the ones that hate you, they'll be the ones to yell the loudest, but occasionally you generate a real authentic fan base and they will come to your rescue.
Absolutely, and actually I've turned a few haters into super fans as well, and sometimes it's just an understanding. But I think the kind of point is, if you aim to please everybody, you please no one. And exactly. So you kind of have to take a stance, because sitting on the fence isn't particularly interesting, and that's kind of what everybody's doing in life anyway, because everyone wants to fit in and be liked. And
yep.
So I'm gonna tease at that personal development a little bit more. The first 30 minutes of your day, I mean, like from when you wake up, like when you open your eyes, what does that look like? Is that a similar thing on a daily basis? Like, what do you do in the first 30 minutes of your day?
Well, do you want me to tell you what I would like to be doing, or what I'm actually doing, or both?
I think both, as long as it's safe for work.
Yeah, it's safe for work.
Okay.
So, because I'm the father of two young boys, I've got a 5-year-old and a 9-year-old. I'm usually woken up, or I wake up, and basically it's like, have you ever seen the movie like Parenthood? Where it's like you're dealing with like what's going on. Like I'm cooking, I'm getting them ready. I'm making sure that one has got his underwear on straight, not backwards, like that sort of stuff. So my morning routine is typically taking care of them, getting them into school and that sort of stuff. The way that the family dynamic works with in my household with my wife is, she's more of a night owl than I am, and I like to have consistency with my sleep. So I like to try to go to bed a little bit earlier and wake up. If I have to wake up one day a week early, I'd rather wake up every day of the week early. Consistency for me is helpful. So it's really difficult for me to sleep in. Like I have to really force it, and it's very, very rare. So my mornings typically are taking care of the boys, getting them fed, getting me fed, and getting in.
So what time do you go to sleep? What time do you wake up typically?
I usually am asleep before midnight. I probably somewhere between like 10:30 and midnight, and then I'm up sometime like around 6:30 or 7. I'm a big fan of sleep. I have found that if I don't get a good 7.5 hours of sleep, then I'm a monster to be around. I'm unhappy with myself. I'm angry at me and everybody around, and I'm a big fan of sleep. So yeah, I try to get about 7.5 hours of sleep. I turn my ringer off. It could be a family emergency, and there's no way for them to, if they're not in my household, they will not get a hold of me. So maybe that's good, maybe that's bad, but that's just the way that I do it. So I want to get my sleep.
I do the same thing. In fact, I go one step further and put it in airplane mode. I'm a big follower of Dave Asprey, and he makes a big point of how actually electromagnetic waves and the kind of things that's going along and going around us in our environment that we can't see is very much there, can impact the quality of our sleep. And I mean, the book that I've written is called 1% Secret, right? And so I'm living my life and I'm always looking for 1% improvements to whatever I can do. And I feel like if I can improve my night's sleep by 1% by putting my phone on airplane mode, well, over 365 days over the year, that's a lot of more benefit I've received from my sleep. And then of course a good night's sleep, a good day the next day. So all right, just quickly then, if that's not indeed the ideal morning routine for you, waking up and like, oh shit, these pants around the wrong way and I've got to cook this food. Yeah. What maybe previous morning routines or your ideal utopic morning routine, what does that look like?
So spending a little bit more time for me to center before I go, thrust into the day, that would be my ideal. And I'm able to do it from time to time, but it's not as consistent as I would like. And of course, me, like everybody, we're constantly like evaluating, what we're doing, and very like I've got that, that voice in the mind. It's like, oh, you should be doing this, you should be doing this, and that's not uncommon. But I think my ideal would be to probably spend 5 or 10 minutes in the morning, just centering myself, either doing some, doing some meditation or that sort of stuff before the day gets going. Because and there have been spells of time when I've done that for longer periods, and I do feel like that's really good for my own, mental health before going into the day, where I can take deep breaths, set my intention for the day, and do that. But as of late, that's not been what's going on. It's been a little bit more chaotic, where like the day is upon us and thrusting in, but so that would be the contrast.
Have you ever, just a side note, have you ever considered like waking up an hour earlier, like moving your routine even an hour earlier, just so that you do get a bit of time before the chaos?
That's a great idea. It just hasn't happened.
I know. It's a great idea, and what you heard was less sleep. And,
yes, exactly. That's
that,
exactly right. That's because that's what would happen. I probably wouldn't go to sleep any earlier. I would just wake up earlier, and then that would be less sleep. So right now, I'm sacrificing the mindfulness in the morning for more sleep. Yeah. But there are times when that coin will flip, and I'll I can set my attention a little bit better. I can do something, because I'm a big fan of mindfulness and meditation. I've found that the stress and the pressures of being an entrepreneur and being a family provider that can compound and can it can really affect our mental health. And I've seen, and when you have those quiet times with other entrepreneurs where it's not this constant pissing fest or dick measuring fest, and you actually talk honestly about what life is really like, then you recognize that. I think the state of mental health in general right now is probably the worst it's ever been in history or civilization.
And particularly in men, right? And particularly in men, I think it was something like suicide in males was higher than any other disease or something. In a certain age range, just because of the kind of stiff upper lip bullshit that's come from the previous generations, whereby you can't talk about problems and things. And actually, like in our mastermind, the Cartels mastermind, in our Slack group, we actually have a channel where people have a place where they can actually, if they've had a shitty day, they can actually talk about it, and if they've had a great day, they can talk about it, right? So they can talk about their bad day without being judged, and they can talk about their great day without people thinking that they're Lamboing it. It's a really good channel. It's a really popular channel as well, and it's just for that. Okay, so how do you get yourself in a state of flow?
So the easiest thing for me to do is to do deep breathing. So like if I find that I'm out of sync, or I need to get into flow, I'll just do 5 simple deep breaths. Try to block out as much as I can. And then I'll just thrust myself into the task at hand. I have found that I'm a bit of a procrastinator, so the best thing for me to do to overcome anxiety is to start doing, to stop worrying about what it is that I need to get done and just start working on it. Like
eat the frog type thing, tackling
absolutely.
the worst one first. And and what about like music or your surroundings when you're doing that? Is there any particular things you do?
Well, I built it, so what I really wanted to do is just kind of create a nest that I'm comfortable in, and I went a little extravagant. So I've got action figures all over the place in here, and I've got some heavy metal picture LPs, vinyls that I actually found these in a box that I haven't pulled out since college. And when we just moved to Texas, we moved, well, not just, but we moved here in July. And as I was going through like all my boxes and memorabilia and stuff, I saw some of these, and I'm like, this is where I'm going to set it up. This is my office. It's I want to make this cool and comfortable and fun for me. So when I come up here, it's cool. Like I like it. It makes me comfortable. So just I don't know how many times I've worked in offices or gone to co-work places or that sort of stuff where you're like in the same damn beige room, and like it's just meant not to offend anybody. It's not meant to excite anybody. So like there's not a lot of there's not a lot of passion that goes into that. And going back to your comment about men and suicide rates and mental health and that sort of stuff, like, you're right. It's what's interesting now is reading the statistic is there's so much less for us to have to worry about in terms of mortality from a variety of different factors that have been killers of humanity for a long, long time. And now people are living longer than they've ever lived before. But at the same time, happiness is at an all-time low. Back when in some of the books and studies that I've read about like pre-agricultural life, back when we were just like nomadic people, kind of like moving around, we were easily able to make our food needs met. And we had so much more social time. Like, most of the food needs were met before noon, and then like social time for the tribe was from noon until people went to bed. And then the happiness for that, of course, you can't take a Neanderthal or a Homo sapien and talk to them, how happy were you? But just based on other factors, you can figure, okay, how hard are they working versus how much social time that they're having, and recognize from that a dynamic that is undeniable. Relationships build and bridge happy lives. Just working constantly and grinding doesn't necessarily make a happy person. It's the result of that. Typically, people are doing it to establish better relationships with their family and with their friends, and that's where they truly seek happiness.
I think that's a fantastic point. And actually, a fantastic book is called *Sapiens*.
I've read it. I've taken a little bit of ad lib from that.
Oh, I mean, that's an amazing book to read about that particular subject. And I think there's a lot of things that we used to have and we've evolved with, and now it's kind of being replaced badly with technology. I love technology. I've already commented in this about how I'm a futurist and I want to see the trends that are coming. It excites me. My biggest regret is I'm not going to live till I'm 200 to see a lot of the things that are coming in the future. I think it's going to be amazing. And like you said, like we're at a position where there's less wars. Right, the news stations are having to like really search into like African tribes and stuff to find a war to talk about, to scare people. There's so much. We're in a much better place. There's less famine. There's less debt. It's the best the world has ever been. And yet, like you said, a lot of people are less happy than they've ever been, and a lot of it comes from like social media, right? You're scrolling through the highlight reels of all your friends, and you're like, man, my life sucks. Look at this guy. This guy's on holiday. This guy's just got engaged. This guy's had a baby, and it's a highlight reel, right? No one's posting about the shit they just took. Well, certainly none of my friends, right? And that's kind of the point, and we're trying to get some of our fulfillment from a red notification light that lights up, to say someone's liked your phone, right? Good chance, liked your post. There's a good chance, folks, that guy that liked your post was on the toilet when they did that. Just remember that, right? That red light doesn't mean as much as what you think, and actually a high five or a hug in public is a lot more real, and would go a long way to solving those happiness issues. And I think so my partner, she's actually studying to become a counsellor, and she feels very strongly about social media and the negative effects of social media, to the point where she's like really not, she has social media accounts, but she's really not on there doing it. And certainly mine is more for business than anything else. As well, and it's because she feels very strongly about that. And I think again, I'm not trying to preach. You can do whatever you like, audience, in your social media, but if you're not aware that the sort of artificialness of the digital way of socializing, and the negative effect of that, then just that awareness could well help.
Yep, absolutely.
God, that soapbox just crept back again, Nate. It's like on a bungee cord.
We're a dangerous pair to have in a room together.
Yeah, we're gonna. We should just get a stage built for us in Dominican. I think in the Dominican Republic in January. I think we should just get that stage pre-made so that we could just jump on it and preach.
You get 2 comfortable chairs on either side of the stage, and we just fireside chat for like 2.5 hours.
Did you say chair or throne?
Now you're talking my language.
Okay, if you bring the hat, it's a deal. Right, so if you ran a school but you could only teach one non-traditional lesson, what would that lesson be?
You mean like the subject material?
Yeah, so it's something that's not currently taught in schools but really should be.
Oh, dang, that's a great question.
Thank you.
The first thing that comes to mind is financial literacy. Um, I don't think that that's taught very well. But the other thing I think is probably a little bit of that, like the personal depth or the personal development of being, being willing to be introspective, for oneself. So that's a toss up. I think probably what would be most helpful for people, if we just talk about like magnitude, is financial literacy. No one knows. You don't teach how to balance your checkbook, manage your finances, how to create a budget, how to not get into debt, that sort of stuff. That's not taught. That'd probably be number one. But yeah, I think for the long term, what might be more important too is some of the personal development lessons and some of the personal development training that I've gone through, creating curriculum out of that for school.
100%. That is a great answer. What book or books had the biggest impact on your life?
Okay, so the biggest book was it's actually a fiction book from an author named R.A. Salvatore, and it's called Magician, and it's basically J.K. Rowling took like a version of that and made Harry Potter, 20 years later. But R.A. Salvatore, he wrote a book very similar about a young lad who discovered that he had some magical powers, and then his kind of journey to learn that and to create his own self-esteem and his own self-confidence, and then how that then led to him saving the world and that sort of stuff. So everything a 12-year-old Nate needed to hear going through puberty with little to no self-confidence, with plenty of preteen and teenage curiosity about like what the world is going to be like and that sort of stuff. So it also solved for me a real big problem that I had growing up is I really couldn't read very well. Nowadays I would have been diagnosed as dyslexic, and it's kind of been full circle because my 9-year-old, he was diagnosed with dyslexia this last year, and it's hereditary. So that book helped me get over the fear I had of reading. And subsequently, it gave me a level of confidence that I could excel academically, as opposed to just barely get by. So I think it was like coming into like 6th or 7th grade that I read that book, and then I was always like a pretty mediocre student, but that helped me. I didn't end up like the valedictorian. I was never like number one in my class, but I was in top 20%, and by the time I was done with high school, and then in college the same way too. So that really helped get me somewhere that I continue to this day. I still read fiction books like Game of Thrones type stuff, or J.R.R. Tolkien, like Lord of the Rings type stuff. I read that for fun. I took another real gratifying component out of it. Tim Ferriss talks about that in the 4-Hour Work Week is, read fiction, read for fun. Don't just read business books. So I do quite a bit of that. So that book had probably the number one most impact. And then there's two others that I'll comment on. And they were career altering for me. The first one was Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. That began a lifelong pursuit of an interest in passive investment, passive income. It got me started in real estate. I just graduated with a degree in media art and animation, and I was on a track to be an employee, for years and years. And that really prompted me to get into the entrepreneurial mindset. So that would be the second book. And the third book was M.J. DeMarco wrote a book called The Millionaire Fastlane.
I love that book.
Yep. And so that really like shattered the whole idea for me of how, being an employee and saving 20%, 30%, whatever of your money would result into your ultimate financial destruction at some point in time, because the Dave Ramseys of the world and Susie Ormans and like all of them don't take into consideration the market adjustments and the market corrections that happen like every 10, 15 years, which destroys everybody's mutual funds and their savings and their 401ks and that sort of stuff. And he really put that extra like prompt that. So at that point in time, I had gone through a successful real estate career. The market changed. I got my ass handed to me. I sucked it up and went back to work for a while because I had a son that was coming and I needed a safe and secure income. So I was, working for the man again for a couple of years. And then I read M.J. DeMarco's book, and that's what prompted me to go out and seek some type of business system that I could invest in or could partake in and build wealth that way. So
nice.
Those are my three.
Thank you. I like those, and I haven't read the Magician book, but I'm Gunster, and as a disciple of Tim Ferriss as well, yeah, absolutely, I echo. And probably I fall on the side of reading a little bit too much non-fiction, and should probably switch it more into the fiction thing. Do you prefer to read like in a book, in a Kindle, listen, or watch?
I use my iPhone. I've got the big iPhone that I use, and I'll just do the Kindle app on it. Or the iBooks app. I just use that. And then the challenge with it though is I have to make sure to turn off notifications or I'll get distracted by stuff that's going on. But I've got my phone with me everywhere. So instead of responding to people on Facebook when I'm sitting on the toilet, I read.
That's good. And I think a lot of people will thank you for that.
I think they should.
What's the best advice ever given to you?
So this is a great question. And sometimes I like to ask myself this, and this has only been through personal development courses that I even thought about this question. Is it kind of constructing it in a way where, if you were to go back in time and tell like a 25-year-old version of yourself, one thing, what would it be? And what I would do is, I would tell a younger version of myself, and even who I am right now, is don't get caught up in all of the what if scenarios. Control what you can control, and stuff that's outside of your control, don't let it affect your state of being, and don't react and respond to that in a negative way. And then the other comment I would offer to myself is, no matter what, you've got your friends, your family, your relationships. Money comes and goes, stuff and shit on the walls and stuff comes and goes. But at the end of the day, you don't take any of it with you. So don't be bothered by what you have and what you don't have in the moment. Just enjoy the relationships that you have, and spend as much time as you can just authentically giving yourself to the people around you and sharing and helping them, because that results in the most tangible benefits and rewards. And money comes later. Like, that's the most important part. Amazing advice.
Is that advice that you've kind of cultivated, or did you actually receive that advice from someone?
No, that's just been me, just like meditating and thinking to myself over time. And I mean, I'm sure there's influencing factors, that have come from coaches and come from coaches and teachers and a variety of different sources. I'm a big fan of surrounding myself with coaches, with mentors, with teachers, with people that have specific, sets of knowledge that I don't. Like, I don't want to surround myself with people that I know more than. Like, that doesn't help me grow any. I'm a big fan of Jim Rohn's saying of, like, you're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. And even being a big fan of that, I still find like I don't surround myself with 5 people that I aspire to as often as I should. Like, I'm constantly working on putting myself in positions where I can surround myself with those people. So, like, having relocated to Texas, I'm building an entire new social structure here. Like, I don't have any local friends. We've got some family, but now I get to consciously build my social network here, like not like social media network, but like people I'm seeing, I'm actually face to face with. And that's something that is really, it's really cool. Like, I'm from a military family, so I've moved every 5 years anyways, pretty much from the time that I was born until now. So I like that. I like, moving my environment, and I would encourage more people to do that. Like, move to somewhere nobody, and recreate yourself, because every time you do that, you have the conscious ability to create yourself in a much more I think positive way than if you were just like no man's a prophet in his homeland. Like, all of the past of what you grew up with and that you've built over time, there's a very limiting like ceiling that you keep bumping into. But when you shift and you move and you go to a new land, like wherever that might be, you've got the opportunity to create an entirely new environment for yourself. And oftentimes when you're maybe maybe the least successful of the group that you're hanging out with, or maybe you're the least self-developed of the people you're hanging out with. When you're around them, that's going to aspire you to reach up, because you see confidently how others are already doing it, and that breaks down any of your own like false beliefs that you can't accomplish that yourself. And like that's why I'm so passionate about building communities and being a part of masterminds. You know, if there's somebody that's listening today and you haven't decided to jump in on the Cartel's mastermind, you'd be an idiot not to, because most successful entrepreneurs aren't building what they're doing without having some kind of interaction with others that are doing better than they are. And then simultaneously, if there's someone who's not doing as well as you are, that puts you in a position to be able to help them, and you will learn a dramatic amount of whatever it is that you're talking about just through teaching. So there's a benefit of having someone that's a mentor and having an apprentice, so that you're teaching and you're learning. I think that's critical for anyone's success, particularly for entrepreneurs and for men. I'm a big advocate of that, because that structure has been, thinking back hundreds of years ago, that's how trades were learned. That's how success was built. There was a mentor, and then there was an apprentice, and then having that structure it's key to success.
Fantastic answer. Cool. I need a moment. Are there any unusual things you eat or drink regularly, and why?
Something that's unusual for me is I just started drinking coffee. I'm probably one of the few that has never really drank coffee. I think there was a small stint of time in college that I was drinking some coffee, but my brother stayed with me for about a week, and he introduced me to these bulletproof coffees, these fat coffees. I was just going
to recommend that.
Yes. And so we're like jumping in this MCT oil, and we got this really good Kerrygold butter in it, and then I go so far as to put in a little scoop of protein, and like to get a little extra protein in it too. Nice. And so I started doing that, and then I was with another Cartel speaker, Jordan Rollband. Mm-hmm. I was with him in Vietnam just a couple of weeks ago, and he introduced me to this place this Vietnamese. The coffee's called Legends. And I've got a mastermind that's called Legends. So I'm like, I've got to get this coffee now. Legends. Just the symbolism there. I've got to do it. And so I bring home, I bought this monster bag. It's probably like 15, 20-pound bag of beans from Vietnam. And so as I'm I went to Thailand and then Tokyo, and everywhere I'm going, like the security's like pulling out this bag of like coffee beans and checking it out and wiping it and that sort of stuff. And I'm like, you better not take that. That's coming home with me to America. But yeah, it's been unusual for me to drink coffee. So that's just something that I've kind of started taking up here more recently.
Nice. I highly recommend, particularly if you're in the Christmas spirit, just sprinkling a little bit of cinnamon on top of that.
I do, little Saigon cinnamon.
Saigon cinnamon. Nice.
Yep, little Vietnamese cinnamon.
Nice. Do you get all your produce from Vietnam? Or is it an expensive grocery list? Or
it actually was quite funny though. When I got home and I was looking at my cinnamon thing, it said Saigon cinnamon, and Saigon is obviously a Vietnamese city. It's like the alternative word for Ho Chi Minh City, which is where I stayed at. So I thought to myself when I got home, I was like, shit, I should have bought some Saigon cinnamon when I was in Saigon.
Yeah, should have bought like 20 pounds of that as well.
I don't know that I need that much cinnamon. It's funny. I just saw this YouTube video of this couple where they take like this giant like spoonful or whatever cinnamon, and then like videos them like coughing and sputtering and puking, and I'm thinking to myself, that doesn't look very fun. I think I'll just do a little dash.
Yeah, just a little dash is good. I think that was the cinnamon challenge. I think that was the thing that the kids did for a little while. What habit or opinion do you have that people tend to disagree with, other than the stuff we've already discussed?
Oh man, we got into a lot of stuff. What's another one? I don't think that people really recognize how bad the mental health situation is I don't know that I could say the world, but at least in America, and particularly for entrepreneurs, I think that in fact, when you mentioned having this Slack channel just for like kind of talking about, like, I don't know if it's like what you call it, if it's like ranting and raving or like feelings or happiness.
We've called it highs and lows. We've called it humble brag. We've called it highs and lows is the most popular name for it.
I think that's really cool because the one of the things with great success, I think, comes great stress. And I don't think there is a platform where people can comfortably share that in an authentic way. And I consciously build that into my mastermind in particular by setting myself in the beginning of each mastermind. I'll go to a really vulnerable state, and I'll share very authentically with the group. And I find that that's really the only way to do it. You can't get a group of people together and kind of like put a subject line on it and expect something to happen. Like, people really need to model from others, like what they should be existing in it. So I haven't seen a great example of that online, which now I'm really curious at how you guys did that there, because I think that with great success comes great stress, and with great stress comes a variety of physical ailments, mental health illnesses, depression. There's a ton of stuff that goes on there. And I look back on all these shootings in America, and there's like one part of like the media that talks about like, we got to get rid of guns. We got to get rid of guns. Guns are the cause. And I'm not that guy. I think there's problems with the fundamental state of mental health, specifically for men. And there's this entire situation of fatherlessness. Like, the majority of the shooters don't have fathers. Never really had any critical father, time in their lives. So it's not popular to say, but I think that there's a variety of problems that we have at a societal level right now. That stems from the gender paradigm of men and women. And I think there's been a big flex of over the last 30, 40 years, women hearing from a small segment that is telling them that they will only be happy if they are equal to men in every sense. And I don't think that is resulting in happiness for women or for men. And it's unpopular to say, and it's a challenging one to also prove, because there's so much social pressure and anxiety and fire about it. But men and women can be equal, but they're not the same. Like, men and women should not be the same. And there's feminine energy and there's masculine energy, and they coexist, yin and yang. There's not two black sides of the yin and yang. There's not two white sides of the yin and yang. There is a black and a white, and there is a difference. And they are equal, but they are not the same. And that's it. I think it's affecting a ton of stuff, and I honestly don't know when the shootings will stop, and when other things will stop. But it's not going to be like taking Americans' rights to bear arms isn't going to solve that problem. No. There will just be something else that they use to kill people with. That's a symptom. That's not the actual core problem. Yeah. The core problem, I think, is fatherlessness, depression, isolation. Is a variety of social things that go into it.
Nice. And so I mean, that's a great segue into the next question. I mean, we've obviously been talking about a lot of men that are unhappy. So what makes you happiest?
Oh man, I know I am the happiest when I'm around another group of particularly it's when I'm around a group of guys. Like when I'm in a group of guys and we're just able to have real conversations, because it feels to me like there's nowhere where we can talk. We can't talk on social media. We can't share honestly, really anywhere. So it's like for me, two places. I guess I should back up. I am happiest when I'm doing fun stuff with my family. That's number one. Second, outside of that, I'm happiest when I'm with a great group of guys and we're having fun too, and we're able to just be honest and just be real. I hate having to what do you call it? I hate having to like repress,
just be macho, just be the
yeah. I hate having to like to hold back because I'm going to offend somebody, or because I've got that voice too that still tells me that if I say something it's going to make me look bad. Like I hate having to feel that way, and as a result of it, like it doesn't just enable me to just be me. Like for people to just be people and just have fun and just enjoy themselves without that constant like pressure of like political correctness or appearing good or what's social justice or that sort of stuff is just the repression lid on society right now is it's going to pop, and unfortunately I think it's going to be in a violent way.
Well, I hope you're wrong, but I don't disagree with you. In fact, I learned this year. I learned what FU money means, right? So fuck you money being having so much money that you can genuinely say what you want without worrying about burning a bridge or offending someone or anything else. And, it's like a remarkable thing to aim for, but like it led me to question, like, do we really need to have like $1 billion or whatever it is in order to not worry what other people think? And I mean, certainly, I try and speak my mind as much as possible. It meant I was like the least popular kid in school because it doesn't work so well at that age. People can't take it, but certainly it's evolved a little bit and trying to inject a little bit of humor into, when I'm saying a controversial opinion and trying to inject a bit of humor into it and just, I guess, having some kind of justification, some kind of why behind the opinion helps as well. But yeah, it's not going to be a good space if people can't genuinely speak their mind. That may
and not immediately be attacked and eviscerated for their opinions.
Yeah, exactly.
Silly.
So, what silly thing should people do more of, in your opinion?
Skip. People should skip. My 5-year-old does this now, and I started doing it with him, and it's so funny. Like, we'll be in public, and my 5-year-old will be skipping, and there's this 38-year-old, 6'2", bearded dude skipping behind him, and it makes everybody smile.
So there's no like skipping rope or anything. We're talking like freestyle skipping.
Yeah, just freestyle, just like skipping down the hallway or down the sidewalk or that sort of stuff. It's just showing joy and happiness.
Nice, I like it. There was something actually Tim Ferriss recommended. I mean, which is a similar sort of thing to that. He recommended if you really want to kind of get over the worry about what other people sort of think of you, and obviously skipping is a great way of doing that. He said, like, go into any coffee shop and just lay down on the floor for like 10 seconds. Don't explain to anyone. Don't give anyone a heads up. Just go down. Just lay down for 10 seconds. Just ignore anybody. If there's someone who's quick to the scene asking you questions in that 10 seconds, you're just ignoring them. And then you can get up and just kind of get on with things. Because if you're prepared to just go, it's fine. It's okay. You're allowed to lay down in a coffee shop, right? Someone will ask you to get up eventually. 10 seconds isn't a very long time, but it is when you're laying down.
Yeah.
But it's a great way to kind of just get over the... people are like, what's that? Is he a weirdo? Is he ill? Is he... No. Quite the opposite.
That's awesome. It makes me think of, if you've ever seen the show, it's called Impractical Jokers.
Right.
And they're constantly doing stuff that's just like, it's the whole thing is like putting each other into more of their like uncomfortable zone. And they're just doing like the most random things, like talking to people at malls and like proposing to them and, doing the weirdest stuff. That stuff is it's highly intimidating to do something like that, but I see that the benefit of doing it would, like, from a psychological level, I think would just be insanely ridiculous, like positive.
Yeah, like the freedom you'd feel from that. Okay, so this is my favourite question. I actually always introduce it as my favourite question. It's also kind of a cool one, and it sometimes has been known to get some great answers as well. So, without further ado, Nate, would you rather fight 1 horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses?
Oh man!
And why?
I think I would rather fight 100 duck-sized horses.
Right.
Because I feel like I could kick the shit out of them, as opposed to the horse-sized duck could like the beak on it could probably swallow me whole. Like
but 100, right? I mean, 100. They might be insignificant, but there's 100 of them.
Man, I would just be like Lord of the Dance, and I would just be kicking and find a little high ground and stomping. And it makes me think. If you've ever read World War Z, not watched the movie, but if you've ever actually read it,
I haven't.
There's a sequence where it talks about this blind guy in Tokyo or in Japan somewhere, and so like this is towards the end of the book. So like the zombies are going crazy, and the book, the zombies aren't like, they're not like the they're not like super fast and running and jumping. Like they're more like the Walking Dead kind of zombies.
Right.
So this old guy in Japan, literally with a shovel and standing on a rock, defends himself for like forever, and he's just high enough that he can use his shovel and he can whack a zombie in the head and it'll fall over, and then he'll whack the next one in the head and it'll fall over, and then he just was able to do that like time and time again. And I thought to myself, the practicality of high ground and of having some sharp object, I think can do a lot in the art of war, so to speak. So I would love to have, if I could have a weapon as well, like a sword or something like that, I would for sure. I've got I keep my my trusty dagger nearby in case I need to open a letter, or
like
if anyone comes in and
long letter,
someone wants to bother me, I can do that. But that's I think I'd rather fight a whole bunch of little things than one big thing.
Nice. There's a similar answer actually. Another guy on the podcast said that he picked that option as well. We haven't had that option chosen for a little while, so it's refreshing to have that option chosen. He said that he would fight the 100 duck-sized horses because each time, in his mind, it was one by one, and each time he would learn from the last time. So he's getting more and more efficient at learning, which I thought was a great answer as well.
That is a good answer.
So,
except they would come at you from all angles. You wouldn't get it one-on-one.
That's the way I see it, like stacked up and that's the way I envision it.
There's also a good chance those 100 duck-sized horses might be attacking each other.
Yes.
Because it's unusual for you to get 100 of anything together without someone getting pissed off.
Yeah, exactly. One of them might want to be at the front. One of them might want to, be at your ankles, and the other duck's there. And exactly. Duck-sized horses as well. I mean,
There is a pecking order with horses too. I've ridden horses quite a bit as well, and there's like no doubt like there are horses that are like alpha horses and beta horses and so on. So they don't like to necessarily all just approach at the same time. They're gonna fight to get in front, and others will just be like, whatever, you go first.
Exactly, that too. So in January, so we've hinted at it a couple of times. So in January, the mastermind in which I'm a co-founder, Cartels Mastermind, we're throwing one of our luxury events. We do 2 luxury events a year and 2 intensive events per year, but we're running one of our luxury events in the back end of January in the Dominican Republic, and we are going to be blessed with your presence. Nate, have you got any thoughts about that? Are you looking forward to it?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I immediately was interested in it. I'm a huge fan of masterminds. I think that you should be in or attend a couple of masterminds a year. I think that it's really helpful to get you listen, like all of us as entrepreneurs, we surround ourselves with mostly staff, sometimes partners. Or we have people that have a vested interest in our success, like vendors or that sort of stuff. And it's really difficult to get that candid and honest feedback and just, real conversations. Again, this has kind of been the theme of my conversation through this point, is having real conversations to help you, consider different opportunities in new light, maybe help you overcome obstacles in different ways. And you really that's what's so great about these masterminds, especially if as they're facilitated for people of similar interests and similar business levels, and having some folks that have a ton of success at what they're doing, and some maybe are just kind of getting started or they've reached a certain level. That's really, really helpful because you're able to talk to people that are on your journey that maybe are a few steps ahead, and then you get a chance to help people, some people that are a few steps behind. And again, there's a lot to learn from both of those, even people that are behind you. Like when you're teaching them and you're sharing stuff with them, oftentimes they've got something in return that they can share with you that they were actually or are better at than you are. And it's absolutely critical, I think. I would not be where I'm at if I had not gone to as many masterminds as I have. And that's what led me to also conduct and facilitate masterminds. I think it's an absolutely critical thing to attend.
And it's I couldn't agree more, obviously, but it's a phenomenal environment when you've got 20 or 30 or even smaller number of very successful entrepreneurs. Their phones are on do not disturb. You have their entire attention, and there can be quite elaborate problems or challenges shared, and someone will propose a solution, someone else will jump on that solution and evolve it further, and then you've got others, and then you've got people saying, well, I've got this connection, or I'll connect you to, and I can, I've got an experience in that area, and you end up with this just this think tank, evolved, amazing answer, which is like the collective experience. I mean, like if say on average the 30 people in the room have 10 years of entrepreneur experience, you've got like 300 years worth of successful person experience shared like in one session. Like, where do you get that elsewhere, right?
You don't get it anywhere else. And masterminds, they're not like a new phenomenon. They've been going on for a long time. Like, some examples of like, there's the example of the Inklings, which had J.R.R. Tolkien, C.S. Lewis, and some other very well-renowned, authors, in the early 1900s that, they spent time together. There's been masterminds that have brought together, dignitaries and presidents and Teddy Roosevelt and Thomas Edison,
Black Apron or something, I think, wasn't it called?
Yeah, I should know this being a mastermind owner. I've gone through a bunch of these, but I'm having a brain fart at the moment. Benjamin Franklin was one. He created a mastermind, early on as well, and those types of things prompt the American Revolution. There's all sorts of stuff that comes out of these. Ford, with his, Henry Ford was in a mastermind. These very successful entrepreneurs, a lot of their success, I would say, in part, has come from, being able to collaborate with other successful entrepreneurs. Like you just don't get that when you're the CEO. And even if you have a business partner, one or two business partners, you don't get that same thing. So you need to be able to get outside of your envelope a little bit and see things in different ways. And usually people leave masterminds with the challenge of, okay, well, I've got so much opportunity. How do I sort that? So that tends to, and that's a nice problem to be in. Yeah. And there's some cool stuff about how to recognize that too.
So I'm going to say for the video and the podcast, the website to go to is cartels with an S, mastermind.com. I will try and make sure that link is in and around this video if it's posted online, but I might forget, and so therefore it's right there because there's a lot of other stuff covered in this, and of course Nate's going to be here if you want to hang out with the big dog. Are you going to bring your Christmas hat?
If you insist, I will bring the Christmas hat. I've got other cool hats I can bring.
I insist. In fact, if it's an option, I'd like you to bring either a very, very small Christmas hat or a very, very large one.
I do have a small Christmas hat that doesn't really fit on my head.
Yeah, that's more what I'm thinking.
So I kind of have to wear it like this, like it just doesn't fit. And I've got a small head. Like I don't have I'm not one of those guys with the baseball. He's kind of turned it
sideways on his head for anyone who's listening and not watching. Right.
Yeah. Now. So I've got kind of a small head. So the fact that I've got a Santa hat that I was trying to call it a Santa helmet. A Santa helmet would be pretty badass.
That would be, yeah.
The fact that I've got a Christmas hat that is too small for my head must mean it will only fit on my 5-year-old or my 9-year-old.
Or one of those duck-sized horses.
Or a duck-sized horse. It could fit over the duck-sized horse's ass.
That's exactly.
It's a real ass hat.
An ass hat. I like that. It's got a lot of levels to that. So, at the end of these podcasts, I've had a great time, and actually we've run on a little bit longer than these typically are. Sorry for people that are sort of, you prefer the consistency of a 1-hour podcast. Sorry this has gone on a little bit longer, but it's been valuable. It's been gold. Nate, at this point, do you have any kind of asks or requests of my audience?
Yeah, so kind of in the spirit of community and getting together with other awesome people, I've got an event in May. It's called the Sellers Cruise, and it's for anybody who sells products online. You could be Amazon guys, and you'll have to listen to me tell you that if you're only selling on Amazon, you're bad, sick, and wrong.
They'll be stuck on a boat with you telling them that as well.
They'll be stuck on a boat, but by the time they're off the boat, they will know what manufacturer, fulfillment, customer service, CRM, they'll know everything they need to do to actually solve that problem.
Yeah.
If you're e-commerce and you're selling on Shopify and you haven't built a funnel yet, you're going to be listening to me tell you about how you need to get a funnel set up. You take your top 2 sellers and you create a funnel. So you're going to have to listen to me tell you about that. And if you're performance marketing or if you're in CPA and you're not doing a Shopify store and an Amazon store, you're going to be listening to me tell you that you need to have an Amazon store. You also need to have a Shopify store. So regardless, you're going to walk away from a lot of me telling you to do some different things. And
it's good advice. It's good advice.
Tons of good advice. It comes from practical experience. We've sold out of a number of the cabins. It's ultra affordable. I'm doing my mastermind included in the cost of a cabin. The cabin comes with all your food, with all your drink. It's a week long. It's May 4th through May 11th. It leaves out of Miami. We have one day at sea where I'll start the mastermind. We'll have the first day will just be introductions. Everyone has a chance, 30 seconds to do an elevator pitch, kind of their claim to fame. No pitching, just say who you are, what your superpower is, and then what do you need help with? What are you looking for? Sit your ass down. Okay, the next person, and then we do that, for everybody that's there. So you'll have an opportunity right out the gate to know who the hell you're on the cruise with, and to start to connect with people that you think might be valuable. The first day that we're on port, we'll be in Jamaica. We'll have a couple of group activities planned. You can go with the group, or if you want to bring your spouse or your children, that's 100% accepted. I'm bringing my wife as well. Couldn't get the kids out of school because they're doing testing that next week, but there's a variety of families that are coming, so it's very family friendly. The cruise ship has included daycare, so you don't have to pay in addition. Like, there's a kids club there, so kids can go in and play and go down slides. And I promise you, by the end of the day, they don't really want to come back to the cabin. They want to just stay there. So that's really cool. So in Jamaica, we'll go do some activities. We'll be back to a day at sea in the afternoon. I'm not going to be doing these early morning things, but in the afternoon, we'll do another 2-hour, 3-hour long session for a mastermind. I'll do some fireside chats. We'll talk to some different folks, what kind of problems you're having. We can do some hot seats and that kind of stuff, and then we'll conclude with a happy hour at one of the designated drinking holes on the cruise ship. And then that process will repeat as we go from Jamaica. We'll go to Grand Cayman, then we'll go to Cozumel, then we'll go to Nassau, and then we'll go home. And it's the most affordable mastermind I've ever seen. And I'm now wondering, why did I do it so cheaply? But I remember it's because this isn't an event for me to pocket a bunch of coin. I really wanted to give a really cool experience, and it's filling a need for me as well. I want to do more events where I'm bringing my family and my spouse along, because I've done this entrepreneurial routine for years, where I go out and go to trade shows and I leave my family behind. And I've got a 5-year-old and a 9-year-old that are dying to come with me all the time. And I see this happening year over year. This is the first year we're doing it this way. I've always done just a traditional summit and conference before.
Well, Nate, it sounds amazing. I'm definitely going to try and make it out there as well. And I would be doing my audience a disservice if I didn't twist your arm a little bit off air and try and get some kind of deal or discount and a link there from you.
We'll do it.
Hopefully you're obliged, or at least throw in some bonuses or something, some kind of incentive for them. I know you will. Where was I going next? So
we can definitely do something special for your crew if they want to come out. What's been kind of cool about this is I literally just found a guy who specializes in doing marketing cruise ships. He does the same sort of thing for Mike Filsame. Russell Brunson's doing one as well. So this is kind of a group of us to get together that are selling physical products online and have our own, sellers cruise. So happy to put together the best package I can. I'm limited on what the cruise ship will do, but whatever they'll let me do, I'll do it for you.
So there's probably not an option to drive the boat.
There's definitely not an option to drive the boat.
That's a hard no.
There's a little boat in the kids area that you may not fit in, but you can drive that little boat. I'm
gunts to do that. Nate, this has been emotional in a very good way. It's been fulfilling in a lonely man way. Hashtag no homo. And I'm absolutely looking forward to hanging out with you in January.
Hashtag heterosexual life partner.
Yeah, exactly. Bromance.
Beavis and Butthead style.
Man, I mean, normally I have some kind of insight. Who am I kidding? People who have heard the other podcasts know that this isn't true. But if I'm lying, I would say normally I will, trail off with some kind of insightful thing. But I think just a humble Merry Christmas, man. Thank you.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.